Welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're diving into something that is just delightfully bizarre. Usually we're digging through these massive mountains of data or, super complex research papers. But today we're actually breaking down a single solitary sentence. Yep, just one sentence. It's incredibly brief, but it sets up this unexpectedly deep, almost wild thought experiment. So let's just dive right into this. Get your imagination ready, because we are about to explore a playful, completely mind-bending hypothetical that is absolutely going to change how you look up at the sky.
What would happen if the sound of the sun could be heard? Just let that sink in for a second. That right there is the direct word-for-word translation of our entire source material for today. One single question. That is literally it. It starts with this really simple premise and then just immediately throws us into the absolute deep end of sheer absurdity. We're so used to looking up and just seeing this silent, glowing orb, right? It gives us light, it keeps us warm. But this source actually dares to ask us to basically flip a switch in the universe. What if it wasn't silent? What if the sun had a voice? And what if we were actually forced to hear it? So just think about the stark contrast we're dealing with. On the one hand, we have the sun we all know and love. It's totally silent, it's bright, it's warming, it's literally the peaceful backdrop to a quiet summer afternoon. But then, on the other hand, we have this hypothetical sun that our source is forcing us to confront, an unmuted, incredibly loud engine of just constant noise. By putting these two concepts right next to each other, you instantly see our peaceful visual reality colliding head-on with this overwhelming auditory nightmare. It basically takes something super comfortable and turns it into something totally terrifying. Let's actually try to imagine this together right now. Like, mentally strip away everything else in the room around you. Just try to visualize and, maybe more importantly, try to listen to this impossible scenario. What in the world does a star actually sound like? Is it this low, rumbling roar? Is it a high-pitched hum? Or maybe it's just this deafening, violent crackle. The crazy part is, our source material doesn't actually give us the audio file. It completely forces our own brains to generate the soundtrack. And keep in mind, we aren't just talking about, a radio accidentally left on in the next room. We are talking about a giant burning sphere. It is a massive, completely unfathomable inferno. If you think about the sheer physical reality of what the sun actually is, the immense, violent energy it takes to light up our entire solar system. Now just imagine taking all of that explosive, burning energy and translating it directly into sound waves. That sheer physical reality is exactly what builds up this incredible sense of comedic dread. But here is the real kicker of the whole concept. It would be making this noise constantly. There is no off switch. There's no remote control that just, turn down the volume when you want to take a nap. There isn't some nighttime setting where it magically gets quieter just because our side of the earth is facing away from it. If this hypothetical were true, it would just be noise, constantly. Literally from the moment you are born to the moment you leave this earth, you would be subjected to the unrelenting soundtrack of a giant burning sphere. And honestly, that absolute lack of escape is exactly where the true humor, and let's be real, the horror of this whole thought experiment lies. So the absolutely crucial point here is right at the very beginning of the quote. What would happen? Those three words are basically the launch pad for the whole thing. Notice how the source doesn't make a definitive statement. It doesn't come out and say, the sun is incredibly loud. No, it invites us into the space of pure speculation. It is just such a beautifully simple setup for a totally chaotic premise. By framing it as a what if, the author instantly hooks our natural human curiosity. We literally can't help but try to solve the puzzle they've placed right in front of us, even when that puzzle completely shatters the laws of physics. To really appreciate how wild this is, let's actually walk through the literal steps required for this hypothetical to even become a reality. So, step 1, the sun makes a sound. Okay, sure, it's a giant burning ball of gas. We can probably imagine it roaring away. Step 2, space somehow lets that sound travel. Now, this is where we have to completely break the rules of our universe. Because, as we know, sound needs a medium to travel through. It can't travel in a vacuum. But in this thought experiment, we have to assume the vacuum of space suddenly acts like this giant blanket of air. And then finally, step 3, Earth receives the ultimate noise complaint. The sound arrives here, bypassing millions of miles of literal nothingness just to completely ruin our quiet Sunday mornings. It's just a hilarious chain of totally impossible events. Now, if we focus on the phrase, if the sound of the sun, it really forces us to think about the insane scale being proposed here. We are talking about an entire star acting as a giant speaker system, and it's pointed directly at us. I mean, think about it. We get annoyed when a neighbor plays their music a little too loud, right? Now imagine a neighbor that is over 1,000,000 times the size of the Earth, just blasting its cosmic baseline across the entire solar system. The sheer astronomical scale of the sound source is exactly what makes this hypothetical so brilliantly absurd.
And finally, we hit the end of our source sentence. Could be heard. This completely brings the entire cosmic event crashing right back down to our everyday human experience. Because it's not just about the sun making noise, it's about the fact that we are the audience. It forces us to think about the everyday pomody of having to actually live with it. Like, how would we even talk to each other? Would we all just walk around wearing giant earmuffs all day? Would human evolution have just completely stripped away our ears over millions of years? That phrase, could be heard, it takes something astronomical and makes it deeply, awkwardly personal.
So, as we start to wrap up this explainer, let's just look at why this single sentence is such an absolute masterclass in curiosity. First of all, it's a pure thought experiment. It doesn't rely on massive data sets or a bunch of complex jargon. Secondly, it totally challenges our basic senses. It takes something we only ever experience visually or, thermally as heat, and forces us to process it auditorily. And finally, and probably most importantly, it leaves the terrifying answer entirely up to you. The source never actually tells us what would happen. It only provides the setup. It builds the stage, turns on the spotlight, and basically just playfully asks your own imagination to perform the rest of the play.
So I'm going to turn this source's question directly back onto you. Seriously, what do you think would actually happen to us? Would society just function normally? Would we end up building these massive soundproof domes over all of our cities? Or would we literally just learn to shout over the constant roaring of the cosmos? It is such a fun, provocative, and just lingering thought experiment. I really hope it stays with you the next time you step outside on a sunny day. Thank you so much for exploring this totally wild concept with me today. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.